We are live for another exciting edition of the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, we got Survivor Series tomorrow night. We have a lot of news to go over. We have star ratings to go over. So let's get right down to it. We'll start with the big news that happened with WWE just a couple nights ago. Unfortunately, more cuts are happening here in WWE. We got Hit Row, Tegan Knox, Drake Maverick, Shane Thorne, among a couple others. Why does this keep happening? Why are we still having these conversations about WWE releases?
What do you mean? The reason this is happening has been well documented. It's because of budget constraints and such.
Yes,
there's some type of financial hardship over at the old WWE, from what people are saying.
I mean, yes, I get it. And I understand why these budget cuts have to happen, because there's just, like, think about it. They released 82 wrestlers this year alone.
Yeah.
82. And that's enough for 2 promotions probably to start up right now. And they still have people they can't put on television.
Yeah. It's difficult for me because I think as much as we want to speculate, we really don't know the true reason. And there's a couple of different things you can look at. Of course, you can kind of just assume that maybe they're telling the truth, that there is some type of financial reason that they are doing this. I don't necessarily buy it. The one thing that I will say is this. I know a lot of people always point to record profits, record revenues, all those types of things. And just like when we talk about, people commenting on the viewership and all of those types of things, unless you truly have an understanding for that type of stuff, don't just regurgitate the talking point that you see people tweeting out continuously.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to argue it from like a morality standpoint, okay, they shouldn't be releasing people, or you would hope they wouldn't be releasing people during a pandemic, or you wouldn't hope that they would re-sign somebody just to lead them on and then cut them, or in Hit Row's circumstances there, where they were brought up, essentially drafted and almost made to be like a big deal just to get released. That's something I can buy. But if you don't necessarily have an understanding of financials, a P&L statement, an income statement, a balance sheet, a cash flow statement, and you don't know how to read those things, you shouldn't just be saying, oh, well, record profits, record revenue, because the problem with that stuff, unless it's the cash flow statement, it can all be fake. And people can speak to that have an actual financial background, I should say. But don't let that just be something that you use as like a crutch. I think that people have a right to kind of to question it from like a moral standpoint, because I really can't. I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it. I've had different types of thoughts behind it, and every time I think I have it figured out, I'm wrong. One of the things that I was thinking was, okay, well, and you've talked about this before too. Are they just getting rid of certain people that they view as, a little on the older side, that were more popular on the indie scene, and they just want to free up space for some people that are coming up, like a Braun Breaker? I don't know. I don't know the direction they're going with this.
No, I think they're still going that route. And I think really, you got to really approach this like they are a professional sports team. They are freeing up cap spaces. They basically they know they have to re-sign or try to re-sign Kevin Owens. There's a report that they made a huge offer on Johnny Gargano. 2024 is going to happen, and MJF is going to be available. There's going to be a bidding war for him, whether or not you want to believe he might go to WWE or not. It's still a possibility with him. And I see people in the comments saying, the releases aren't even 1% of their budget. Their whole entire budget doesn't revolve around their entire revenue. They might have a budget for talent payroll that is just way above what they should be paying. Like, this is the problem. The problem isn't that they're releasing people. The problem is they got to a point where they have to release people. There's just way too many people on the roster. That's the problem.
And Eric Bischoff touched on this too, and I'm not saying anybody has to agree with this, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with it, but at the end of the day, the difference between AEW and WWE and other even smaller promotions compared to WWE is philosophically they are just different. WWE is like a Disney World. They are huge in comparison to some of the other promotions, and they are publicly traded. And the main thing that they are trying to justify or they are trying to do is they, as Eric Bischoff said, they have a fiduciary responsibility to please certain people that hold stock within that company. And they, unfortunately, sometimes they have to do certain things to please the stockholders. And, people may not necessarily like that, but unfortunately, that is what it is. They're not making decisions based on what they think is going to please the IWC. They're making decisions based on who is going to please their stockholders and the people that are investing money in the company. Because assuming that it is true that they are making the revenue that they are making, and again, I say that because they are saying that, but again, revenue numbers and profit numbers, those can be fudged and those can lie. Think of Enron. Enron essentially did that. If they are truly making those numbers, that's what's going to matter to those people.
Right. And I just want to say something before we move on. Comments like this is why AEW is going to win the war. Enough. No. There's no war. They're not competing against each other on the same night like it was in the 90s. There's no war. There's no, we're going to, cause someone to go out of business. Stop. That's a fan-created bullcrap statement. These wars are non-existent. It's a fan-created thing. Stop with the war comments. There's no war. None whatsoever. I'm sorry. No war. Now, you want to say they're competing for talent? Sure. But literally, you could watch Dynamite on Wednesday, Raw on Monday, NXT on Tuesday, SmackDown on Friday, and you could be the same person watching all four of those shows and support both promotions. There's no war.
I'm glad you brought that point up because that's one of the things I've said from the very beginning. Maybe not, what we see on TV going head to head and things of that nature. That's not necessarily a war, but where there may be some type of pseudo war is where, when it comes to talent, if there becomes a free agent that is a mega, it happened with Adam Cole. WWE essentially was trying to sign him, trying to coerce him to stick with them, and AEW ultimately signed him. That is where if there's any competition between the two, in my opinion, that's where the biggest competition is, because talent, as they get out of their contracts, as people become free agents, that is where you're going to start to see this quote unquote war as they kind of compete for this talent and getting these people under contract. And the reason I bring that up, and I'm glad you mentioned it, is this. When you think about this, or if I'm going to try to wrap my head around why WWE is releasing so many people, if you look at AEW and you look at all the other promotions, the one thing that we can confidently assume is budget-wise, WWE, just because they've been around for so long and because of some of the partnerships and things that they have in place, they have a lot of cash that they can throw around. Throw around and throw that at people and try to sign some of that younger talent.
Right.
AEW right now, just the company itself, I'm not talking about Tony Khan because unfortunately people want to talk, oh, he's a billionaire. Yes, I get it. That's not how businesses typically work. You don't just have a billionaire who just continues to fund people out of his pocket. A company has to be able to sustain itself based on the revenue it's bringing in, the cash that it's able to generate, and then they use that cash to then pay said employees. That's very different than just having a billionaire throwing money into a company.
Right.
Hang on. Let me finish this thought. Assume this, or this would be my only other thought process. Is WWE essentially letting some of these talents go, knowing that some of these smaller promotions are going to use that money to sign somebody like whoever it may be? Because when these other people do become free agents, like an MJF or somebody like that, maybe WWE is positioning themselves for the future so they can make a really big cash offer to somebody like that. And again, I know people are going to be like, oh, they'd never sign. This is wrestling. People go back and forth from promotion to promotion. They always have, aside from like maybe 3 or 4 big name guys like Undertaker or something. Even him, he went back and forth. Granted, it wasn't The Undertaker, but it still happened. So
right.
That's maybe their thought process, and that's my only thought as to why they continue to let people go like that.
Honestly, they know the value of or at least they feel the value of the person does not meet the return on investment. And that's the budget cut right there. That's it. For anybody that wants a full in-depth, like you're not going to explain that to the person you just fired because they don't want to hear that anyway. That's the thing. They don't want to hear it anyway. Tell them budget cuts, okay, whatever. They don't see my value, I'm out. Do what Drake Maverick did. That was an amazing video. That was amazing. It really was. It was awesome. And also John Morrison was one that was released too. So I know a lot of people were upset with that. And his wife, Frankie Monet, Taya Valkyrie, had some very emotional things to say about that, basically saying that they don't care about their talent. They don't care about their fans. And I understand that. But I mean, they don't care, like they're not going to care about you specifically, but as long as people are paying, that's all they care about. And that's just business. And when people say that, and I understand like, it's not just business. Some people say as a rebuttal, it's like, unfortunately it is just business. It's not a personal thing. It's just, they feel that person is just not a return on investment and they're cutting their losses. Now you brought up Tony Khan, and I do want to bring up a quote that he said. He was on Busted Open Radio this week and was asked about MJF because he brought up the whole bidding war in 2024 and asked if he knew about that. He did say, yes, I knew he was going to say that. He's been saying it for a long time. I have no problem with it. I signed him to a 5-year deal. He has 3 years left, so there's going to be a bidding war for him in 2024, and he's fine with that. But then he addressed the cuts. And here's what he had to say about that. Anyone who signs a contract in WWE these days is not signing a real contract. It's a temporary arrangement. People who come wrestle with me, a lot of these people are frankly lifers, and they know that. There are some people who are here who work really hard, and there are some people who come in and work more than really hard, I feel like is their actual life, and will be there with me for the rest of my life. I don't know if everybody who works for my competition could say that. I think there are people who work there and they aren't sure they will be there next week. There's a lot more security with the contract here. I can't say I'm going to extend every contract and bring every person back, but I also haven't been doing massive layoffs. I'm not the most profitable company of all time, and I don't brag about being the most profitable company of all time. I do brag about being in a lot of revenue for a startup company and being a real success story. What I bring about this, we haven't been doing these mass layoffs, and we haven't fired 15 people last week and 8 people the week before that. It's not something to be proud of when a company lets all those people go. You're putting press releases out like that frequently. I don't think it's a good thing. Ralph, I agree with TK on this. I really do. Is he profiting as much as he should? Probably not. But the guys he's paying for are within his budget, and he's using them. And I think his return on investment is what he feels is okay. And it's working for him right now.
Yep. I agree with some of what he said, and I think of some of what he said. I think sometimes he says too much, and he needs to be careful the way that he says things, because when he goes out there and says something like, I'm trying to make people lifers, or whatever the way however he phrases it about keeping people under contract for life. And AEW right now has been really successful, but AEW still, to me, is still very much in their honeymoon stage. They're still very young by comparison to other companies that have had success in the wrestling industry. They're still very young in comparison to the biggest company right now, WWE. Now, if WWE is making the money that they're making, the revenue and the profit and all that type of stuff, again, you have the right to question that from a moral standpoint. But Tony Khan going out there and saying that he's going to keep these people as lifers and all that type of stuff, that's great, but that's also under the assumption that you still are turning a profit and that you still are generating revenue.
And these people want to resign when their contracts are up too.
And we don't know if AEW is going to run into a point where, people lose interest, or they book the wrong thing, or they come across some type of hardship where they're not generating enough revenue to pay certain. Because let's be honest here, when you have guys like Sammy Guevara, when you have guys like Darby Allin, guys on their 4 pillars, those guys eventually will become free agents, and you may have to make the choice. Okay, do I throw a big contract at this guy? Do I re-sign this guy? Do I have to let this guy go essentially to free up some, let's call it cap room, or free up some money to pay somebody else? Tony Khan hasn't necessarily been in that position yet, luckily, and good for him. But you got to think, just like every other business, there's ups and downs, and that time may come. So for him to go out there and say, like, I'm going to make guys lifers, I hope he can, because I love AEW and I want them to be successful. But those words, if he's not as successful as they have been, can certainly come back to bite him for going out there and saying something like that. So I don't disagree with the statement. I just think that sometimes he can choose his words a little more wisely, where he gets himself into trouble sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely think sometimes he reacts emotionally, and basically like anybody else on social media, they comment emotionally and not logically. And I think, like, in this comment here, I think this is probably him being the most, at least, or the least emotional he can be about things he's commented on. Like, he's not going out on Twitter and like, oh, you're going to go up against my show, I can't wait to beat you. That's emotional, Tony. That's social media tweeting people like out of emotion. But the releases, like, I think all contracts in theory are temporary arrangements, because they have an expiration. It's not like you're an employee at will where you just work and work and work until either A, you quit, or B, they let you go for whatever reason that may be. So that's part of the independent contractor thing. So, and I think, Mario Morales in our live chat brought up a great point. This happens in pro sports all the time. It happens in the NFL. People get cut as soon as their guaranteed contracts are out. They get cut before training camp. They get cut before the NFL season starts. It happens all the time in pro sports. And people get laid off too. We live in Connecticut. How many times have you heard ESPN have massive layoffs despite being owned by Disney, who has even more money than WWE, so much that people think they're going to buy WWE?
Yeah, and again, I really don't fault people for questioning it from a morale standpoint, because again, if you're an employee, unless you're Roman, if you're a mid-card guy or lower mid-card guy, I'm sure that you feel like you could essentially be released at any moment. And somebody just commented on that. That does not necessarily make for a good work environment or a good atmosphere. And right now, I wouldn't be comfortable with a position in WWE if I'm a mid-card or lower mid. I guess even somebody that's even prominent on TV, because John Morrison was on TV for quite a while there. And, so
unless you're Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, or Seth Rollins, or Becky Lynch, or Charlotte Flair. I think like those five are the only 100% absolute safe. And even then, like, if you believe any of the difficult comments about Charlotte Flair, is she even safe? But unfortunately, this stuff does happen. It's a business. But, one of the people that was released was Miro. And he had some things to say recently on a podcast, talking about former WWE talent going to AEW and, being that as a criticism against AEW. But he said guys like him, or guys like Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Moxley, they already made a name for themselves in the independents even before WWE. And for him, God made me, not Vince McMahon. Yeah. Your thoughts?
Some kayfabe mixed in again with some overreaching, in my opinion. WWE,
a little bit.
The kayfabe part obviously is him still, and good for him, still saying, God made me, which, that's a part of the Redeemer gimmick or character or whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, were they popular on the independent scene? Yes, absolutely they were. And the one thing I would say about that is being really good on the independent scene doesn't necessarily guarantee you success at the higher levels like this. Could have happened. They could have just went straight from the independent scene straight to AEW and been as popular and as successful. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they would have been signed to such lucrative contracts and given certain opportunities had they not given the time to perform on the WWE stage. So, I think Miro should be thankful that he did get the opportunity to work for WWE, because if I'm Tony Khan, it's a lot easier to sign somebody that's already established than going and signing some guy in the independent scene that essentially you're taking a risk on. So
that's the same thing about WWE and kind of their approach right now is they try getting names from the independent scene to make them TV ready and make them superstars, and just the plan just didn't work. Whether it was bad creative or guys just not connecting with the audience or Vince McMahon being out of touch, whatever the case may be, it just didn't work. Those that they kind of just took from different aspects of the entertainment world and made them professional wrestlers have worked out better. Like they've done better with Alexa Bliss than they had Ember Moon. They've done better with Carmella than they had, a Tegan Knox. They've done better with, a Roman Reigns than they did with Shinsuke Nakamura. And that's just how it is. And Amiro actually was a guy that, to my knowledge, didn't really work any independent. He was one of those guys that WWE made, and he had a pretty good run in WWE. Could have been better. I think everyone can admit that. But I think that run helped him become who he is in AEW, and Tony Khan just took it to the next level. And that's really what helped.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that, philosophically, WWE is going to try and get their own guys over as long as they fit their mold. And, AEW is certainly geared more towards getting guys that are going to work more of that independent style.
Yeah, I totally agree. But, I see a few people in the comments here. Once, let's see, one saying that Carmella's second generation. Yes, I understand that. Another one saying, honestly, when you think about it, the reason why a lot of these independent stars don't work out is because Vince McMahon is trying to make everybody do the exact same thing, and you can't. That's true. I've said that before.
It's not just about independent guys not working out. There's been a lot of high-profile guys that have come to WWE, and it hasn't worked out. And guys have gone from WWE to WCW back in the day. It didn't work out. Bret Hart was probably the biggest free agent to jump ship back in the 90s. And would you say that he had a successful run in WCW? Probably not. Scott Steiner came over from WCW to WWF at the time, or maybe it was WWE by then. He wasn't necessarily successful. He didn't have a great transition. DDP didn't have a great transition. It's just
True.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And some of these guys like Miro go from WWE and he's found his thing. He's found his it factor there, which is great. Some guys went from WCW to WWE and it worked out, like The Undertaker. It is what it is. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. Some guys just find the right place where they can be the person that they want to be and it clicks.
Yep. That's very true. We talk about AEW, we talk about WWE and former guys going here and, guys going there or whatever, and this forbidden door. Well, Big E's been doing some interviews lately, promoting Survivor Series, and he talked about the forbidden door on a recent podcast, and he wants it open for WWE and AEW. He thinks it would be incredible. Ralph, I know people asked us last week about a AEW versus WWE Survivor Series, and the fact that Survivor Series has no build to it whatsoever. Well, I shouldn't say whatsoever, because they did do some build with Big E and Roman, and they've done some build with Becky and Charlotte, but the rest of the show is just the one night of the year where both brands challenge for brand supremacy or whatever the stupid thing is.
Did anybody give you any credit when you said that Becky and Charlotte was essentially a work, which...
No.
Becky killed it, by the way. She did that interview. Was that with Ariel Helwani?
Yep. Ariel Helwani, she said something. Was that the one where she talked about how there should be stakes, even if it's for a banana? Was that same interview?
This was the one. I saw a little clip of it where she was saying that she was talking about how she went and back and just how the whole thing transpired. And you know why it was good? Because it wasn't a freaking pro wrestling promo.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I don't like you. You don't like me. I'm a champion. You're a champion. You disrespected me. And that's why sometimes you need that realism and not just guys going out there and cutting, or in this case, girls, but going out there cutting promos on one another with the same talking points, with the same delivery and the same tonality and all that crap. But anyway, back to your point.
Right. So we talked about a AEW versus WWE Survivor Series last week. I think someone donated to the Super Chat Party with a question on that. Maybe this is where they go. If this ever were to happen, Maybe this is how you build up Survivor Series for 2022 and make it WWE versus AEW for Survivor Series. And that's just like pro wrestling's all-star game, because that's how I feel Survivor Series is right now. It's an all-star game. That's why they don't build it like other pay-per-views, because the story is just, here's an exhibition between these two guys from different brands that you don't normally see because they're on different brands.
Yeah, and it's likely not going to go anywhere after that. I mean, even some of the matches that you've had on Survivor Series that were really good and that you thought they were going to revisit down the line, they don't always do that. So,
right.
You know.
Right. Well, if you guys want to see AEW versus WWE in some form, supercard or something, give us a like on this video right now. We're at 18 likes right now. Let's try to get that up. We need that like button up because that helps spread this video around and get us, more push. And the more push that we get and the more, interest we see in this, the more we'll do these kind of shows like this. And of course, at the end of our predictions for Survivor Series, we will do a Q&A. Donate to the Super Chat party, get your question answered. But Ralph, let's talk about Full Gear. Now, we made predictions last week, but we didn't do a review. And part of the reason we didn't do a review was because we were one of the many misfortune that had issues with Bleacher Report, and we're waiting for the re-air to happen and be available on Bleacher Report, but I got impatient. I got pissed off. So I asked for a refund. They gave it to me, and then I didn't end up getting it at all until about like 5 o'clock at night when I finally bought it on Fight TV, which is much better of a service than Bleacher Report. And if you ever want to order a pay-per-view on Fight TV, click the link in the description for any of our videos. We have an affiliate link there that helps, you get what you want, helps kick us back and support this channel so we could do more content for you guys. So, so we figured let's do a little review here because Dave Meltzer has brought his star ratings out. So, Ralph, I figured we do a little over-under. You want to play a little over-under?
Yeah,
we'll go.
Definitely with this.
So I'll give you Dave Meltzer's star rating, and we'll tell you should it be over, under, or did he rate it right? Now, the first match, the opening match, Darby Allin versus MJF. Everyone praised this match from the beginning. I mean, this was an incredible match. I thought it was the match of the night, and I think this is a match that, if you're talking about the four pillars and the future about this, this definitely helps with the future of AEW. Be like, see that, guys? That's where the future of AEW is going to be, and that's great. Dave Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars. Over, under?
Over. Simply for the simple fact, like you said, I thought this was the best match of the night, and it wasn't rated the highest, at least by him. So I'm saying it should be.
I definitely say higher too, and I'm making a bold statement here, Ralph. Making a bold statement, but I think this belongs in the best opening match conversation with Brett and Owen and Triple H and Bryan Danielson. Frick, Jim Ross gets it messed up. All other podcasters mess up. I mess up too. Bryan Danielson, There we go. Bryan Danielson.
Yep. No, I agree. I thought this was a very, very good match. I definitely thought it was the match of the night, depending on what you were looking for. And I was surprised that it wasn't rated. I shouldn't say it wasn't rated high, because it was rated highly. I felt like it should have been rated a little higher by comparison to some of the other matches that were rated higher.
Right. No, it definitely was. And we're going to talk about that. But the next match, Penta and Rey Fenix versus Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood for the AEW Tag Championship. I thought this was a really good match. The finish was stupid. And I think a lot of people could agree with that. So stupid.
Overbooked.
It just goes to show you how bad of a ref Rick Knox is, because he couldn't even figure out, yes, I understand Cash Wheeler was wearing a mask and couldn't figure out the two. And yes, I heard that Dax Harwood got hurt, and that's why the finish happened the way it did. But I think I did not like the finish of this match. Dave Meltzer gave it 4.25. I think that's a fair I think that's a fair mark. 4.25, I think, is a fair mark there.
I don't know. I felt like the match was good and had good moments. I felt like it was a little long. I think the end was definitely convoluted. I felt like there were definitely too many moments where the rules weren't being enforced as usual. I think it should have been. I put under. I wouldn't have even made this a 4-star match, to be honest.
Really?
That's me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, again, it just we go back to, there's too many times where the ref is made to look foolish by these guys not following the rules, and it's just blatant. Like, okay, well, you're just going to allow them to do the spot. And
it's funny because the tag match on Dynamite this week with Dante Martin, Lio Rush, they actually enforced, like Rick Knox actually enforced tag rules there. So it's like he picks and chooses based on who's in the match. It's like, well, the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks are in, so I'm just going to have amnesia on how, I'm just going to have amnesia about tag rules, but anywhere else, I'm actually going to enforce them like they should be. But I thought, other than the finish, it was pretty good. I will say there was a part talking about tag rules where, like early on when AEW first started, we saw Ray and Penta high-five each other when they're both in the ring, and they called it a tag. That same thing happened in this match. It wasn't as obvious because they didn't show it on camera, but if like you look quick enough, they did the same thing, and it counted as a tag. But yeah, I think if you want to go, I don't think it's definitely higher, but I think 4.25 is decent. But I guess if you want to go lower, I could see why. But next match, Bryan Danielson, whatever his name is, against Miro. Winner gets the AEW Championship match. This was a very good match, and the way both of them should be presented, as Miro gets as a dominant heel, monster heel, and Daniel Bryan is a great wrestler, but is still the underdog due to his size. And I thought this was a really, really good match. The finish made sense with the whole DDT to the guillotine. I think Aubrey Edwards was the ref in this match. Or no, excuse me. I think it was Bryce Remsburg. I think he could have gone a little bit slower going to the bell, because I think as soon as Bryan Danielson hit the submission, he went for the bell. I think that was way too fast. But I thought this was a really good match, a really good story. Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars. I agree with that. I think that is a solid rating for that one. If you want to go 4.75, yeah. And I wouldn't even argue against 5.
Oh, 5 stars. It was a good match, but I mean, again,
I said I wouldn't argue against it if someone thought it was a 5-star. I don't agree with it, but I could see if someone thought.
By comparison to some of the matches that he's given 5 stars to, and let's just say like over the course of how many years, I don't know. I guess what he rated it, I thought was pretty fair. I don't know if I would say 5 was the cutoff at one point, correct? Meaning that's the best you can get. I've seen better matches than this.
Yeah.
I think 4.5, anywhere between 4.5 would have been appropriate.
Right. Now, let's talking about 5-star matches. The next match got 5 stars, and that was the Jurassic Express with Christian Cage against Adam Cole, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks. We saw Jungle Boy become Jungle Man. We saw a lot of car crash wrestling in this one. This one, I think, is definitely under 5 stars. Now, if he's rating it based on other no disqualification matches, I don't think it's at the same par as the parking lot brawl from last year.
Rate, right? Didn't he say he couldn't? Oh no, that was what wasn't there a
the non-sanctioned match with Moxley and Omega? I think he said he couldn't rate because it was noticed. I forget the reasoning, but I think he said something along the lines of because it was so whatever, he didn't rate it.
Okay. So you're just going to say below, I'd imagine, with this.
Yes, I agree. It was a good match, but
I almost feel like he's deliberately trolling people by making it 5 stars because the Bucks, because of he knows the reaction he's going to get. But
that's what I think it is.
This was not a 5-star match. I mean, even by comparison to other non-disqualification, hardcore type match. I mean, this was depending on what you're looking for, I guess you could have really enjoyed this, but there's no way in my mind that I would ever consider this a 5-star match.
Right. Now, I correct me if I'm wrong, because the article that I'm using doesn't have these matches in order. Was CM Punk and Kingston next, or was it the tag match next? I think it was the tag match, right?
I don't remember.
Well, we'll do the tag match next, and I think that is what's next. And someone can, let me know in the comment section. This is what happens when you have to restart your computer last minute and you're flustered and don't have everything in your ducks in a row, unfortunately. But tag match got 4 stars. Cody Rhodes, Pac, Malachi Black, Andrade El Idolo. This is one of those matches where I think they just put these guys on the card because they had to put these guys on the card. And Cody just... I want to say this is a storyline, but I really feel like Cody's just a delusional babyface. Like when people say, "Oh, WWE shoved Cena down our throats and Roman down our throats," Cody's shoving himself down our throats, I feel like now. Why did they win this match? Why?
Couldn't tell you. Really couldn't tell you. I also couldn't tell you why it got 4 stars. Do you think 4 stars was a 4-star match?
No, not at all. I think 3.5 max.
Yeah, I mean, again, good match, I guess, but
well, they set up for the hot tag with Cody and it got no response. Like, he got the tag and was like, nothing. Dead silence.
Well, the crowd was silent for some matches where I thought they were going to pop. But again, I think most of the matches were 15, 20-minute matches where, again, do they really need to all be this long? But
in this match, I think this match was 18 minutes. This match did not need to be 18 minutes.
Yeah.
This match could have been done in 9.
A lot of the matches.
This match could have been 9 minutes and it would have been much more effective. But the
next match that we're going to talk about was one of the shorter matches.
It was the shortest match.
Okay, it was the shortest match, but to me, it had maybe the most emotion and was put together. And just goes to show you, you don't need to have 15, 20-minute matches to put on a good performance.
Right. I totally agree. And, let's talk about CM Punk and Eddie Kingston because that's the next match on here. The shortest match of the night, easily, but it was the most effective, I thought. I watched this match and I was like, damn, they got right to the point. CM Punk didn't do his big entrance. He ran right into the ring. They do let's get, face to face. Kingston sucker punches him. And then it was off to the races. And they built the story of Kingston being out of shape into this match. And that's why he was winded. Only goes 11 minutes. And CM Punk does get the win. This match goes 4.5 stars. I think it should be higher. I honestly think this was a 5-star match, despite it only being 11 minutes.
I would have said, 4.5 is good, is appropriate. And again, I'm using a scale of 1 to 5, thinking 5 is the best you can get. This was a good match, but again, I feel like I've seen better matches. 4.5, 4.75. I don't know if I wouldn't say 5, but it was a good match.
I don't know. I think it needed everything it needed to be. It was timed right. It told a good story. If you think Eddie should have won instead of CM Punk, I could see where maybe you don't give it a full 5 stars, but I thought it was just well done. I thought it really was.
Thoughts of the 5-knuckle shuffle.
Oh, that was a great troll job by CM Punk. And just because that people were saying the story was that CM Punk became Cena and Kingston became CM Punk. Obviously, great storytelling there.
Yeah.
So, and the crowd woke up with this match because, there was a couple where it just felt like the crowd was dead. And then this match happened and the crowd came back up. The next match we'll talk about is the women's championship match, Britt Baker versus Ty Conti. This one, I think, went 12, almost 15 minutes. This one, I think, could have been a little shorter, too. I think Ty looked really good in this match, but I'll admit, as I said last week in our prediction show, this match shouldn't have happened. This should have been Jade Cargill's match, and because of that, I had no interest in it. And despite that, they pulled out a good match. Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars, and I think that was a solid one. You knew Britt Baker was going to win. They gave you an entertaining match. The crowd just unfortunately wasn't into it because I think they knew Ty Conti wasn't going to win. But I didn't really see anything that was like egregiously bad, but I didn't see anything that was like, oh my God, this match is awesome either. So 3.5, I think, is a well rating for that one.
Yeah, I think 3.5 is a good rating. Despite it being a little long, it was good.
Right. Now, the next match was the Minneapolis Street Fight. Meltzer gave it 4 stars. This match was nearly 20 minutes, and the first, I want to say 5 to 8 minutes was not even street fight stuff yet. They were doing everything in the ring. I was like, this is a street fight, right? Like, why are we tagging in? Why are there no weapons? What the heck is this? And then they finally get stuff going. You have Baron Von Raschke giving the claw to Ethan Page. So once again, Ethan Page looks stupid and doesn't help his cause. And, this whole feud, which should have helped Santana and Ortiz and the Men of the Year, they were just back burner and part of the joke. And a great tribute to Eddie Guerrero, as we saw a few of these throughout the night. But this was, Jericho being a close friend of Eddie Guerrero in the city that he passed away on the anniversary, which I don't know if that was just ironic or what, but freaky that happened. But great tribute with Jericho there. I'm not giving this 4 stars. I'm not even giving it 3 stars. I thought this was 2 stars.
Yeah, this was, now we're talking about matches up by the 4 stars and again, just the rating scale, if it is based on 1 through 5, I didn't see anything in this match that was like, oh my God, that was, there was cool spots, but a well-worked match? No, I'm sorry. This isn't 4 stars.
Right. No, I agree. Now, the final match, the main event, the match everybody paid to see, the culmination of Hangman Page finally winning the AEW championship. I thought this was well done. I thought it was a really good match. We finally got the story finished and culminated with Hangman. I think the fact that he reversed out of the One-Wing Angel and tried to hit Kenny with the One-Wing Angel was a nice surprise. And the finish was great where the Bucks kind of gave their approval, like, we're not going to interfere. It's your turn now. Kenny needs to go. Here's your moment. And I love the moment at the end where Hangman smacks the bear out of his hand and out of Alex Reynolds' hand, gives a hug to the rest of the Dark Order. We get that nice, Bret Hart WrestleMania 10 moment where, they hold him up. I thought it was a good match. Do I think it's 5.5 stars, as Meltzer put it? No. There were definitely better matches on this night. This was not the match of the night, and this was not 5.5 stars.
Didn't Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole, didn't they get 5.5 stars?
Yes.
5 stars.
They got, I forget if
that
it was
5. The highest rated WWE match ever.
Yes, and that was the one at TakeOver, New York, before WrestleMania. Yeah. I think that was the one that got 5.5.
Okay.
Or was it the one in one of those two? The one in Bridgeport or the one in New York? One of them was over 5 stars. But I did not think this was 5.5 stars. I would say 4 3/4 would be personally my pick for this. I thought it was a very good match, but maybe he gave it a little bit more because of the moment, and that's fine. But as a match itself, that's not 5.5 in my opinion.
Yeah, I've seen 5 what I would feel is 5.5 star matches from Kenny, and this was good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish how good the match was, but at the same time, 5.5 again breaking the scale, so to speak, which is something that happened just 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Oh, it's been happening. So
it's been happening more and more.
The Bucks and Kenny versus the Bucks versus Kenny and Hangman, that got 6 stars, I think, and that was considered the greatest tag team match of all time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't say 5.5. It was good. I would say anywhere between 4.25, even if you wanted to try and justify 5, I wouldn't even argue with you. But to break the scale, come on.
Right.
If there is a scale anymore, I don't know.
Right. Now, if you agree with these star ratings, or if you think that MJF and Darby was the best match of the night, or CM Punk versus Kingston was the match of the night, give us a like on this video. Let's try to get to 100 likes before the end of this stream. And don't forget, we're also going to answer your questions at the end for a little bit. Use the hashtag question in the live chat so we can see them. But also, to know for sure I will see it without missing it, donate to the Super Chat Party. Because if I miss it, it's just because I couldn't see it. Super Chats, I could see no problem. So... but let's get to the Survivor Series predictions, Ralph. The one night of the year where Raw and SmackDown go head-to-head for brand supremacy. As I call it, the WWE All-Star Game. The 25-man Battle Royal in honor of The Rock. That was announced last night on SmackDown. I couldn't even tell you all 25. I know AJ Styles is in it. Omos is in it. Sami Zayn is in it. The War Raiders are in it. Los Lotharios are in it. And that's as much as I can remember. But I think it's probably one of those that I remember. I think Sami Zayn wins, and The Rock's going to come out and give him a rock bottom.
Yeah, I keep seeing a lot of people saying that. I'll say Sami Zayn, I guess. I honestly, though, I have not been paying attention as much as I would have liked to be paying it. Well, I shouldn't even say that. I've been picking and choosing what I've been wanting to watch from WWE, and it's been mostly SmackDown. So.
That is true. It really has. I mean, I try to watch Raw. I like what they're doing with Big E and Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. But other than that, like, they're just, nothing has worked pre-draft, post-draft. It hasn't worked for Raw yet.
I'm still like, especially now, the dynamic between our Riddle and Orton.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with that.
Right. All right. Next match is the men's Survivor Series match. Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Lashley, and Austin Theory going up against Drew McIntyre, Jeff Hardy, Happy Corbin, Madcap Moss, and Sheamus, who won his spot last night in a fatal four-way against Cesaro, Ricochet, and I can't even remember the fourth guy because my memory is just so shot right now. But I know he wasn't involved in the victory anyway. But I think you would think McIntyre's just going to run through everybody on Raw. But why do I feel like Austin Theory is going to shine in this match?
Probably because he's going to take some type of crazy bump or something like that.
Or take a selfie and for a roll-up win.
Maybe.
They did have Austin Theory versus Jeff Hardy before the draft. So maybe he does the selfie shot on Jeff Hardy after he eliminates him from this match. Long-term storytelling in WWE. But I think I'll go with SmackDown here. I think SmackDown gets the win with McIntyre. I think he's going to be the guy that eventually dethrones Roman. So you got to start pushing him heavily, and they have been for the most part.
I do think SmackDown will win. I don't know if he's going to be the guy to beat Roman right now. There's not really too many people you can look at and be confident in, but Drew's a good choice, so I would pick them. Right. All right. Next match is the women's Survivor Series match. Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Zelina Vega, Carmella, and Liv Morgan against Sasha Banks, Shotzi Blackheart, Shayna Baszler, Natalya, and Toni Storm. And Toni Storm filled the slot that Aaliyah once had, and they announced that on Twitter earlier in the week, and then confirmed it on SmackDown last night too. Toni Storm now in a program with Charlotte Flair, so you think she's got to get some shine. You have Shotzi and Sasha going back and forth. Can they coexist kind of stuff? Shayna and Natalya are basically Sonya Deville's goons at this point. So I think Tony's going to shine, but she'll be the last one eliminated so that she looks good in a losing effort heading into Charlotte. But Raw is going to get the win here. Yeah, I think Raw gets the win, but I think that Shotzi will actually cost them the match, and maybe she gets like eliminated and comes out and attacks Sasha or something. Or maybe what they do. Here's how they should book this, all right? It comes down to Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Toni Storm. Toni Storm eliminates Rhea Ripley, and then let me backtrack a little bit. Rhea Ripley
Shayna Baszler, Natalya, Toni Storm, Bianca Belair. Those are your final people left. Toni Storm is sitting out in the corner doing nothing. Sit there until we tell you to come in. Shayna gets eliminated. Natalya eliminates Rhea. So it's Belair, Toni, and Natalya. Natalya and Belair get double DQ'd somehow, and Toni Storm wins because she just sat in the corner. That's some great storytelling.
Didn't they do that already a couple of years ago?
They did it last year with Lana.
And what happened to Lana?
Yeah, she got released.
I wouldn't be too. What's going on with Aaliyah?
She's
decided she wasn't going to be in the match.
Well, last night, did you watch SmackDown last night?
Half of it.
Well, it was in our home state of Connecticut, so we should have watched it. But Aaliyah and Naomi were in a tag match with Shayna and Natalya, and Naomi got quick counted for the win or for the loss because one of the NXT refs was the referee in that match trying to get a job. So Sonya Deville lashed her out for being unfair or whatever, but it's just a cover up because we know that she was involved against Naomi with the whole, crap with that. So she's pinned with this Naomi storyline with Sonya Deville.
Okay.
But I'm going with Raw here. Who are you going with?
Raw.
All right. RK Bro versus the Usos. The tag team champions go off at each other here. I think for storyline purposes, this has got to go to RK Bro.
Really? Because the story they've been telling from what I've seen on Raw is that Riddle keeps biting off more than he can chew and getting them in these bad situations. So I think
but you also have the Usos that can't finish off their own battles. Roman's got to do it for them, while the Usos, help Roman win all his matches. Roman doesn't do the same.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with the Usos in this one.
I'm going with RK Bro. Shinsuke Nakamura against Damien Priest. The mid-card titles go head-to-head. Honestly, because I don't really follow Raw too much. I don't really know what's going on with Damien Priest. I know they're trying to do this heaven and hell split personality character thing. But I think Shinsuke Nakamura with Rick Boogs I'm not a fan, honestly. I'm not a fan of Rick Boogs. It was great in the beginning, but now it's just kind of obnoxious. And can he just play the song right once? Every time he plays it, he hits a wrong note. It's not that hard of a song. I freaking learned it on guitar by ear. And granted, I'm not playing in front of 10,000, 20,000 people, but the song is not hard. Play it right once, please.
So you're going with Shinsuke.
I'm going with Damien Priest.
Okay. I'm going with Priest too.
All right. I think they're going to push him anyway, and Shinsuke might, I don't know what his contract situation is. It doesn't even matter anymore, but next match, Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. The match that was, oh my God, this is so, oh my God, what's happening backstage? Charlotte Flair is being difficult. Becky Lynch is protecting everyone in the women's locker. No, it's a work, guys. It is a work, as I mentioned, and they build it up kind of nicely on social media through podcast interviews and even on the Go Home Angles this week with Charlotte's promo. Actually, it was last Friday. And Becky's rebuttal this Monday, which was amazing. I did see that. It was awesome. I'm going with Becky here to win.
I'm going with Becky too.
They should make it a winner takes all match just to have some kind of extra stakes in it, though. And we get Becky 2 belts back. But then Toni Storm can't have a title match, and then she'll get released just like Tegan Nox. So we don't want that to happen. Main event, Roman Reigns versus Big E.
I got to say Roman.
This one's harder than you think, I think, especially because last night, Paul Heyman just drops Brock Lesnar's name last night when Roman was going to be crowned king or whatever. I think Brock Lesnar gets involved here. And I think because of that, Big E will either win or Roman wins by disqualification. I don't think this is going to be a clean finish. Obviously, any match with Roman's not going to have a clean finish. So I was going back and forth. So I went with the ultimate predictor to decide my prediction with this, and that is my son, Lorenzo. I put my two hands out, and I said, Roman or Big E? And he reached over and touched my left hand for Roman Reigns. So I'm going with Roman Reigns.
And if Brock will come out after then.
And Brock will come out after, and that's going to be your closing shot. Although it would be nice if Big E won, and that's, sending the fans home happy with the babyface win. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But
if Brock comes out, fans will be happy too.
True. But I think you can at least give Big E a nice win as WWE champion. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. But, guys, we have some merchandise available. As you see behind me, you get 10% off using the promo code SCPB10. Link is in the live chat. Also, link is in the description below. Let's do some questions here. Again, use the hashtag question. And they're going to go in the order that I see them. If I miss it, unfortunately, it's just I'm trying to do these really fast. And also, if you want to make sure I don't miss the question, you just simply donate to the Super Chat party, and whatever we can, help support the channel. It could be $1, it could be $5, $100 if you got it. I know people have budget cuts these days, and it's the holidays, so we appreciate just you guys joining us. And if you can't do anything monetarily, just like this video and share it all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. All right. Ralph, first question here is going to be, there was a good one I just saw. All right. Does it feel like WWE is becoming underwhelming a little bit with all these releases?
I don't think the releases are the reason it's underwhelming. I just think it's the fact that they don't have that many interesting characters or challengers, and that's a problem. You need to care about the talent that they have on TV.
I totally agree.
A lot of the people that they have released have been people that aren't really prominent on TV. Some have been. Bray Wyatt, on Morrison to an extent.
Braun Strowman,
yeah. So
we'll see, but do you think Austin Theory is going to be a good star for WWE? I could see him as a main event guy. Definitely upper mid card. Main event, depending. I don't see him as a WrestleMania main eventer, but I think eventually that role that kind of Kevin Owens has right now, I think he could have.
I think he can be a main event. I could see him as like an AJ Styles, but again, it's not so much. It's like more of a charisma thing. Is he actually going to be able to find that it factor? He can wrestle, that's for sure.
I think he has. I think he does great character work too. I think he does better character work than AJ has done. I mean, AJ's gotten better over the years, but character and promo is not exactly AJ's strong suit. Where Austin Theory has that comedic side to him that Vince McMahon likes, even with all main eventers. So I think there's more promise with Austin Theory than others could be. So, next question. What's a good way to bring in Buddy Murphy in WWE after an inadvertent vignette shared with Malachi pre-AEW debut? I don't think I saw this vignette with Malachi and Buddy Murphy. But
are we saying that he's going to go to AEW or WWE?
AEW.
Oh.
How would you bring him into AEW?
I wouldn't. They don't need him. They have a million guys that are just like him that do the same thing. He's a very good pro wrestler, and that's fine.
Right.
I don't like. They have a million guys like that. They don't need any more people like that.
Right, and I think with him too, like you could always do the Forbidden Door thing, like they did with Ishii this week. It's just, Buddy Murphy's here because I haven't really been following New Japan, I'll admit, but did he join a faction with New Japan, or is he just I know he just wrestled Okada this weekend, I think was his match, but I don't know if he's part of a faction yet, but I'm sure he will be part of one soon. But do you think Survivor Series needs something to fight for? They should do winning teams should get the last spots in the Royal Rumble. Anything. As Becky Lynch said, even a banana would do. They need something more than the one night where Raw and SmackDown go head to head for brand supremacy.
Especially because, again, it goes back to the biggest problem with WWE. There's very few people that you can actually care about or get invested in. So, why should I care tonight or tomorrow or whenever it is about Damien Priest and Shinsuke? Because other than the titles, like, they're good, but does WWE make them feel special? Not always. So that's the problem.
Do you think Big E is a good champion because he worked harder than Roman? That's not a good, to say Big E worked harder than Roman. Like, no. I mean, he's a good champion because he's a good character. He's bringing somewhat good storylines to Raw. And so far, he's beaten some quality opponents like Drew McIntyre, like Bobby Lashley as champion. So to say he worked harder than Roman, I think is an unfair comparison there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to question two guys' work ethic when really all I can see is what I'm presented on TV, and they're both good at it. So,
yeah,
I'm not gonna question Big E's work ethic, and I can't question Roman's work ethic. So,
right. All right, here's a good one, Ralph. Growing up as wrestling fans, did you ever think of becoming a pro wrestler?
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously, anybody who watches wrestling when you're young, I'm sure always thinks, "Hey, I would like to do that." I would think.
I wasn't. I always wanted to be a commentator.
Well, that makes sense.
Or a ring announcer. Like my idols in wrestling were Jim Ross and Howard Finkel. They were not wrestlers. I don't know if I ever brought this up on a podcast before, but at my wedding, I hired Howard Finkel to introduce my wife and I. That's how big
this actually makes a lot of sense now, because you hired Howard Finkel, and I came out to Stone Cold's theme music, so we can actually see the difference there. One of us did want to be a wrestler, or would have hoped to when they were younger, and one of us was mesmerized by the commentating.
Right, and I even when we were kids, like I always did like commentary as we were doing matches and stuff as kids and whatnot. And I would always imitate Howard Finkel, like the following contest is scheduled for one fall. I would do that all the time, and I don't know if that's a good impression or not, but I always wanted to be a ring announcer or a commentator like JR.
Anybody better than the Fink?
No one.
So.
No one will ever be better than Howard Finkel. The only one that might come remotely close was Greg Hamilton before he left. He was good, but he's still miles away from Howard Finkel. No one will beat Howard.
There was just something about hearing the Fink say, and new, and you can obviously do it better. Thinking back to like whether it was Hogan or Austin or Warrior, whoever it was, just you have flashbacks of moments, but very few times you have flashbacks of announcers calling like whoever the winner is of a match. And with Howard Finkel, I feel like you have that. With Jim Ross, you certainly have that. But
Right. All right. The next question here: who should go over, CM Punk or MJF?
MJF.
I think so too. That's going to be CM Punk's first loss. And that's how you get MJF into the title picture and maybe ranked, because, the rankings are so important in AEW. So that's a good way to do them. What is your prediction for Revolution? What matches do you think are going to happen? I think it's a little too far ahead to think Revolution because you still have the first Dynamite on TBS. You have Winter is coming for Rampage. And that battle for the belts that's happening, that special, is it on TNT? I think it's too early to go that far into Revolution, but I would say at least the AEW championship is probably going to be Hangman versus MJF.
Hangman and MJF? Okay.
Or Adam Cole, but I think what's going to happen is Adam Cole's actually going to dethrone Hangman, and that's going to start a program with Cole and Kenny, because Adam Cole beat Paige and Kenny didn't. And then, of course, you have Kenny chasing the title back, and you can get him back as a baby face that way.
Yeah.
So, do you expect Bray Wyatt at Winter is Coming?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
When do you think Braun Breaker comes up to the main roster? I think sooner than you think.
Yeah,
I think sooner than you think.
Months.
He was already touring with the main roster. He was part of that UK tour. So, and we saw Von Wagner on SmackDown last week. I didn't see him this week unless I somehow missed it somehow. But yeah, I think sooner rather than later. Why is Serena Deeb not given more TV time when she's clearly talented? Ask Tony Khan. Because they don't give enough TV time to the women's division, even though it's still more than WWE. They don't give the women enough time, and Serena Deeb should be one of them. Plus, she was hurt for a while, so maybe she's still recovering. Do you think Shida has been booked better in her return than in her title reign? I find myself caring more about her Deeb feud than her whole reign. Honestly, I think she's been booked worse since her title reign. Outside of the matches with Serena Deeb, she's basically a non-thought.
Yeah, I don't know. I said this before, like, it was hard to kind of get invested in her title reign. It's kind of hard to get invested in her now because there's not really too much consistency with most of the women's division.
Yeah. Have you noticed WWE is firing all ex-NXT big names as Vince is gradually wiping out the stars Triple H built? It's more than just the guys Triple H has built. Like, there's a lot of guys that came through NXT that have succeeded in WWE as on the main roster. Seth Rollins, which is a Triple H guy. Kevin Owens. Drew, if you want to count Drew McIntyre, although he left, came back, whatever the case may be. Charlotte and Becky and Sasha and Bayley. So Bianca Belair. So it's not just because Triple H built them. And that's just one of those narratives that gets pushed around and, Triple H should leave WWE because look at what Vince does to his guys. It's just, no. They just don't work. That's what it comes down to. Triple H made them work on NXT, and it's a different audience. And WWE's trying to make NXT for the main roster audience. And I'll admit right now it's not working at all, but NXT's audience was much different than Raw and SmackDown's audience. And some guys make the transition and guys don't. Nothing?
I was reading the super chat.
Oh, okay. We did get a super chat, so let's get that out here. How concerned should WWE be about their declining Raw ratings? 2017 Survivor Series Go Home show was a 3.0. This past Monday was a 1.5. I'm guessing 3.0 is 3.0 million and 1.5 is 1.5 million. Those aren't ratings. Those are total viewership. Ratings are a percentage. Viewership is everybody. So make sure we get the two together. They're different. Rating and total viewership are two different things. But I think WWE is only concerned if USA goes, we're not airing Raw anymore. And seeing that they just put $1 billion on Peacock, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Could their viewership be better? Yes. Could their ratings be better? Yes. But concerning, as long as they're basically the number 2 cable show when Monday Night Football is on and number 1 when they're not, I really don't see them being concerned at all unless no one's buying airtime. But why would you not buy airtime for the number 1 cable show in the key demographic?
Yeah, and again, you could speak to it better than I can because you actually work in TV and have a good understanding of this stuff. I would just say, as long as they are, and again, going back to what I said before, if the revenues and the profits and everything that they're reporting are real, if they are truly making the money that they're making, it's not really going to be a concern for them. They're still finding ways to make money, which just means they are a little more competitive in different areas because they're making money somehow. So as long as they're successful, could it be better? Yes, but as long as they're making money, I doubt that they really care all that much.
Right. Now, thank you very much, Prime Killer, for your $5 Canadian donation to the Super Chat Party. We're going to do a few more questions, but if you want to get your questions in, donate to the Super Chat Party so I know your question will be read. I'm just going by the ones I could see here. Have you been to an AEW live show? If not, do you want to? I was at the Kansas show for my birthday. It was insane. Happy belated birthday. I don't know when the show in Kansas was off the top of my head, but glad you enjoyed the show. I do want to go to an AEW show, but the problem is they haven't come to Connecticut yet. They come to New York, they come to Boston, but they skip Connecticut. And I get it. WWE's headquarters are in Stamford, but I don't see, I think there are college arenas that they can tap into in Connecticut that they haven't yet for whatever reason. And maybe it's because they'll get taxed out of their asses that they won't make a profit if they do so, because the state's bad with that. But I would love to. It's just, I can't go to New York or Boston on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I would love to go, and they haven't come to Connecticut. I have not gone to one yet.
Do you think Money in the Bank has replaced Survivor Series as part of the Big Four with Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania?
I would probably say that's not a bad suggestion, especially when you consider that Money in the Bank does have a lot of build and a lot of significance around it. People genuinely get excited for it.
And it's going to be in a stadium next year. It's going to be in Allegiant Stadium next year. So I think so. I think it definitely has. I think it definitely has filled the void that King of the Ring once had. I don't know if it's leaped over Survivor Series, because it all depends whether or not Money in the Bank makes more revenue than Survivor Series. We all know WrestleMania is the big one, and SummerSlam's number 2, and Royal Rumble's number 3. And I think Money in the Bank having that stadium show, I think that will make it go to number 4. If WWE or AEW offered you a job with the creative team, would you guys take it? I would take it, but I'd probably be fired because they would not like my ideas, I feel like. Tony Khan might be a little bit easier to work with, but as soon as I tell him his rankings are fucking stupid, he might fire me.
I mean, yeah, if they offered it, sure. Why wouldn't, I guess? I don't.
My first thing is Jade Cargill is your Goldberg, and she's on every week squashing people, and she's the champion for 150 wins until someone beats her with a cattle prod. It worked once before. Do it again. And yes, that's why it wouldn't work. But let me see. Try to get people that haven't asked a question already. How many defenses have we seen from the Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura? Why don't they care about that title anymore? Your guess is as good as mine, man. I couldn't even tell you the last time Shinsuke actually defended that title. I don't even think he's done it on a pay-per-view yet since he's won it. I don't even remember when he won it. I honestly don't remember when he won it now. I couldn't even tell you who he beat. That's how bad this title has been booked. Did he beat? I think it was Apollo Crews, but
I think it was too.
That's just, it's sad. It's sad. Who do you want to win the TBS title? Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill. What do you guys think about this as the next 3 AEW champions? MJF over Hangman. American Dragon dethrones MJF. We get some Bryan Punk versus FTR matches. It's cut off here, I think. We get Bryan and Punk versus FTR matches. Punk turns heel, takes the title from Bryan Danielson.
So pretty much that question's asking, who would you like to see the next 3 champions be?
Yeah.
MJF, I would like to see champion. I would like to see Darby win the championship at some point.
Mm-hmm. I say it's going to be Cole, Omega wins it back, and Bryan Danielson are the next three. Can you kindly do a video on where it would be appropriate for all recent releases go to new promotions? There's been so many releases. I don't know if we could do every single one, but the All Elite Wrestling Draft might have to come back at some time. MJF versus Darby was the best opener in years. Is MJF the guy to break CM Punk's streak and have his heat go full nuclear? We kind of answered that already. I think we both said yes on that. Unfortunately, it will be Brandy brandishing the cattle prod to go over Jade. Please no. Do you think Triple H should go to Sinclair Broadcasting and rebuild the Ring of Honor roster plus all those who have been released? I've heard this before. I've heard this pitch before. Steve from Steven Larson going in Raw, he brought it up on his Wrestle Juice channel, and he was kind of like forcing himself not to think about it because he knows it won't happen. But that's a damn good idea. The problem is, do you have Triple H would basically have to sell all his stocks from WWE to quit and go to Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor would have to pay him. And granted, it won't be the same money, but he'll be able to live comfortably for the rest of his life. He'll lose half of it due to a divorce with Stephanie, probably. But I think it would be a great idea, but that's a fantasy.
Yeah, that's back to like fantasy booking. I don't ever foresee it happening, but.
Right. No, I agree. But that's all the questions that we have here. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on this edition of the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Thank you, Prime Killer, for your donation to the Super Chat Party. Like this video, share it all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble.